Salutations and a most cordial welcome to you all. I am currently in the company of my dearest daughter Gertrude as we make our way by carriage to our summer seat, the Breakers, situated in Newport. It was just a decade ago, in the year of our Lord 1896, that my late husband, Cornelius Vanderbilt II, saw fit to complete this grand edifice. Make yourselves at home, and it is a pleasure to receive you at my residence.
Hello everybody and welcome back. So we're still in Newport and today we're going to visit the Breakers. After the original Breakers burned in 1892, Cornelius Vanderbilt II was obsessed with fireproofing. When he hired Richard Morris Hunt to build the current mansion, he gave him a clear directive: make it as indestructible as possible. We're starting our adventure today at the architectural heart of the Breakers. While other rooms are spectacular, the Great Hall is designed to be intimidating. It is the first room guests entered, and its sole purpose was to leave no doubt about the Vanderbilt's family status. Just like Marble House, a lot of the rooms here were actually featured in the Gilded Age HBO series. For those of you who've seen the series, you probably know exactly what I was referring to as far as the status. It was a little bit challenging for them in the beginning to get it to be accepted by the New York wealthy circle. So, this room was really to create, to leave no doubt actually about their status and their wealth, and to show everyone that they're pretty wealthy. I mean, one of the things, But because of that, we get to enjoy this amazing artwork of a house, and where every room is just it's like pretty much the walls are like masterpieces in the museum. I mean, honestly, and everything else. And that was the sculpture of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Commodore. But between the chandeliers and the sky ceiling and this staircase, I mean, you can enjoy this for hours. I'll be honest with you. And here is Cornelius Vanderbilt II himself. Here's his portrait. But what I wanted to say, we can do as much as we can in the video, like this beautiful fountain and everything else. We can show as much as we can here. But when you get to see this in person, it's a whole different experience. You get to really zoom in and enjoy stuff. And we're entering the dining room. If the first floor meant to impress, the dining room was meant to overwhelm. It's arguably one of the most opulent room in the entire mansion, and 24 square foot masterclass in Gilded Age over-the-top luxury. This room was designed in the style of the Italian Renaissance, but everything is amplified. It's framed by 12 massive columns made of rare rose-colored alabaster. Carved wood walls are covered in 22-karat gold leaf. When the 12 chandeliers are lit, the entire room glows in a warm metallic intensity. 2 massive chandeliers hang from the ceiling made of fine baccarat crystal. The central table is made of carved oak and can extend to seat up to 34 guests. Dinners typically consisted of 10 to 14 courses, served by a small army of waiters and formal staff. Alice Vanderbilt believed that dinner is a theatrical experience, so there were some rules that guests had to follow. Wow, I can only imagine them sitting there dining in this room. It's amazing. But we're going to make our way to the billiard room. It is one of the most structurally impressive spaces in the mansion. While many rooms in the house tend to lean towards the French styles flavored by Gilded Age elite, the billiard room, designed by Richard Morris Hunt, draws inspiration from ancient Rome, specifically invoking the atmosphere of a Roman bath or classical atrium. The centerpiece of the room is a massive original mahogany table, which was featured in different movies, including the Gilded Age. This room is a showcase of Hunt's experience in masonry. Unlike other rooms that use wood, paneling, or plaster, the billiard room is defined by its use of rare and heavy stone. I don't know about you guys, but as we walk through the rooms and hallways of this house, it feels like you are, back in those days, and you kind of, I can imagine, Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt walking through those hallways and entertaining guests and just enjoying this marvelous, beautiful house. I mean, it's amazing. I would definitely think it's something you want to enjoy in person. But we're gonna head over to the morning room. Let's see what awaits for us over there. And here's the portrait of Count Lazio Sugeni. He married Gladys Vanderbilt. If billiard room is the masculine Roman fortress of the house, the morning room is its feminine counterpart. Designed in France by Julius Allard and Sons, this room was where Alice Vanderbilt would write letters and receive guests during the early hours of the day. The use of platinum wasn't just a flex of extreme wealth, it was a high-tech solution to a very expensive problem. Adjacent to the morning room is the music room. While billiard room is Roman, the morning room is platinum-clad French neoclassical. The music room is golden explosion of high Renaissance style. And again, see another Gilded Age reference here, so they filmed some of the scenes in this room. This room is arguably the most theatrical room in the house, designed not just for the acoustics, but to broadcast the Vanderbilt's family cultural sophistication. Similar to the morning room, the entire interior was constructed in France by firm Richard Bowers van der Bogen, disassembled, shipped across the Atlantic in a number of crates, and reinstalled in Newport. As soon as you walk into the room, you feel the overwhelming use of gold. The woodwork and plaster moldings are heavy gilded with 22-karat gold leaf. Just imagine them entertaining guests in this room and playing this piano we just saw in front of us, or this one here. I mean, it's just, it's just remarkable. I mean, the chandelier up here, and again, the ceilings are beautiful. I mean, if you look up, I mean, it's like another work of art. The ceiling features a massive central circular painting surrounded by deep, ornate coffers. The painting depicts a tour, the muse of music, further cementing the room's purpose. To balance the warmth of gold, the lower walls in the fireplace are constructed from Compan Melange marble. And I apologize if I mispronounced the name. The person in the picture is Nell Gwynn, a famous Restoration-era actress, beloved comic performer, and celebrated mistress of King Charles II of England. We're going to head over to the library right now, but while we're walking down this beautiful hallway, let me give you interesting information about the house, or interesting fact. So, we know that Mr. Vanderbilt was obsessed with fireproofing, so he actually had Hunt integrate a state-of-the-art, for that time, 1895, internal fire hydrant system. Behind many of the ornament wall panels and tapestries are hidden cabinets containing canvas fire hoses connected to the high-pressure water system. And as a backup, there was a massive water tank on top of the roof that would actually be used in case the pumps failed. To make the house even more fireproof, the boiler room was set up away from the house several hundred feet and underground beneath the front lawn. The heat was pumped into the house via a reinforced tunnel, and that the primary source of explosion of the coal fire was never inside the walls of the house. And we're entering the library. Wow, beautiful. The Library of the Breakers is widely considered as one of the most magnificent rooms in the entire mansion. Unlike the formal white marble public spaces, the library was intended as warm, functional centerpiece for well-read Vanderbilt. The walls are lined with rare Circassian walnut, which was cut in Europe, stamped with gold leaf, and decorated with low relief carvings. The upper walls are covered in panels of gold embossed Spanish leather. This was popular high-end design choice in the late 19th century to give the rooms a rich masculine texture. This mansion is truly one of the kind. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful mansions in Newport. Of course, we were just in the Marble House, and that house is. But the size of this house and the scale that it was built on is just remarkable, and something you get to see a lot of mansions. I mean, we've been to other Vanderbilt residences, some of them, of course, not all, but this one I think tops the charts in the size and architecture. My personal opinion again. And we're gonna go make it upstairs. We're gonna go up there and see what's over there. So once you go upstairs, you end up in mezzanine, and that's where you get to enjoy that great hall from the top. You can kind of picture Vanderbilt's entertaining their guests and having those lavish parties, and you can really enjoy. Like, I think at the better angle here, that sky ceiling. It's painted to look like bright blue sky with wispy clouds. Great trick with the architect. It was pretty awesome. And we're entering Gladys Saki's, or Countess Saki's, bedroom right now. This was Gladys's childhood bedroom, designed by Ogden Codman Jr. It represents a shift from a heavy Italian Renaissance style on the first floor towards a lighter, more refined French-influenced aesthetic. This room featured a smooth palette of ivory and cream, which was considered a simple French style at the time, offering a calm contrast of the mansion's more ornate public spaces. The decor and furniture follows the modified Louis XV style, characterized by delicate curves and elegant woodwork that reflect preference for 18th century design. We're entering Mr. Vanderbilt's room. Private suite of Mr. Vanderbilt on the second floor feels remarkably different from the rest of the breakers. It is a space designed for a man who was a commodore and chief of the world's most powerful railroad empire, solid, masculine, and deeply traditional. Designed by Ogden Codman, a cousin of novelist Edith Wharton, the room reflects the Louis XV style, but with distinctly American late Victorian sobriety. Unlike the pale stone of bright gliding downstairs, Mr. Vanderbilt's room is anchored by dark, rich walnut. The walls are covered in beautifully carved walnut paneling that reaches from the floor to the ceiling. The furniture is built in heavy neo-Renaissance style. It meant to look old, established, and permanent, fitting the men who oversaw the New York Central Railroad. What we see there in the distance is Mr. Vanderbilt's dressing room. The bathroom was carved out entirely out of white Carrara marble. There are 4 tabs on his bathtub: hot and cold water and hot and cold salt water, pumped directly from Atlantic Ocean. And we're entering Alice's Vanderbilt's bedroom. Is a light-filled, cream-colored sanctuary of elegance. While Cornelius's room felt like boardroom, Alice's, designed as a Louis XV boudoir, meant to feel airy, feminine, and impossibly refined. It was also designed by Ogden Codman Jr. This room is also famous for its architectural shape. Instead of a standard rectangular box, the room features rounded corners, creating soft, elliptical flow. History tells that Gertrude and Gladys weren't allowed to attend the parties, so they would sneak out of their bedrooms and watch the parties from the mezzanine. And we're entering Gertrude Vanderbilt's bedroom. It feels like a high-end, turn-of-the-century Persian apartment. Gertrude was the oldest daughter of Cornelius and Alice Vanderbilt, and she would later become a famous artist and the founder of Whitney Museum of Art. Her room reflects a younger, more bohemian life, sensibly that transitions away from the heavy Victorian era towards lighter 20th century aesthetic. While everything is expensive, the room feels intentionally lived in and comfortable compared to museum-like quality of the Great Hall. Gertrude's furniture is noticeably lighter than the massive walnut pieces in her father's bedroom. Much of the furniture features woven cane panels, which was considered a fresh, breezy, and modern look for the summer cottage. Unlike heavy red damasks downstairs, Gertrude's room featured floral patterned silks and cottons, making the space feel like an indoor garden. Gertrude was an aspiring sculptor, and her room reflects her creative spirit. The guest rooms were situated on the second and third floors and were treated with formal yet lightly more modest touch compared to primary family suites that were designed to ensure that visitors experience the same high standard of Gilded Age luxury as their residents. Most of the guest suites followed adaptations of French 18th century designs, utilizing damask-hung walls and coordinated furniture sets that provided comprehensive, sophisticated look. Each guest room was equipped with its own bathroom, closet space, and which was pretty much a rare luxury in 1895. I hope you guys enjoyed our historic walk through this beautiful marvel of architecture, engineering, design, and just art. I mean, most of the pieces we've seen here, I mean, they were stunning, and I think they're better off to be enjoyed in person. Well, at this point, I'm going to say thank you for joining us on this adventure, this historic walk through this beautiful place, and we have more videos coming up, so stay tuned. We'll see you in the next one.